Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ed Massa, and I'm here this evening representing the Time Warner Cable Business Class. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight. I'd like to thank Jason and Kelly for the opportunity, and more importantly, the opportunity to help kick off the new season and to introduce this evening's entrepreneurs and startups. We have a great agenda tonight, and before we begin, I'd like to share with you why Time Warner Cable Business Class is excited to partner with Startup Tech Valley and with everyone associated with the organization. Every new startup, entrepreneur, business owner, and businesses in general have their own unique value proposition, and you will hear 5 of them shortly. So what is a value proposition? Perhaps you've heard the term elevator pitch. If you could really put one together, it would be no longer than 60 seconds. And every business should certainly have one. And so I challenge everyone here this evening, and every entrepreneur here tonight, to have one. In the words of Steve Jobs, a value proposition should speak to 4 components. 1, what do you do? 2, what problem do you solve? 3, how are you different? And 4, why should the customer care? At Time Warner, our value proposition is quite simple. We work with startups and many small businesses, just like yours, to help streamline your communication services. Our solutions are designed to improve productivity, reduce operating costs, and improve your overall profitability. With a 40% commercial market share here in the Capital District, we're a leader and an innovator in the telecom industry. And personally speaking, I live and work right here in the Tri-City area. Time Warner is passionate about working with new and existing businesses. Our wholly owned, operated, and facility-based network allows us to meet your current requirements and then to grow with you as your business grows. Whether it's a dedicated internet connection, a business class phone service, disaster recovery services, cloud services, or even just basic cable TV, we offer a truly scalable and affordable solution. We're excited to be here tonight to listen, to learn more about your challenges and goals, and to see where and how we can assist in helping you to achieve them. Our thanks again to Jason and to Kelly and to the organization. We're genuinely honored to be a proud sponsor of Startup Tech Valley. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Cusack from RPI. I have the privilege of introducing the entrepreneurs tonight. Many of you may have seen me around in the Entrepreneur in Residence. I work with Kelly and Jason. I want to make sure to thank our sponsors. Anybody that was here last year, this very one last year, there was probably about 50 of us. So the sponsors that help us grow this, I want to make sure they were up here earlier. Make sure to thank them if you see them. But round of applause, great. So the first company, I have Jay McBain from Channelize, which is a channel acceleration platform for vendors, manufacturers, and distributors to connect better with their partners. With that, Jay.
Well, thank you, Matt, and welcome everyone. Standing room only. It's not very often you get to speak with the second deck as well, so I love you guys. It's always the fans that are up on the second deck. So before I get started, who in the room has heard of Channelize? Well, that's not bad. So about maybe a quarter of you to the 3/4 of you, I will follow the directions and make sure that I go through the value proposition, all 4 steps. So we are a company, we've got a little bit of a unique niche. So we're a B2B company. We work with all kinds of companies who have channels, partnerships, dealers, agents, resellers, advocates, advisors. I could go on all night. I use up my 5 minutes. But we work to improve their channel partnerships. So a little bit about us. We've been working for a couple of years. We've had an exciting summer. One is we just moved across the street to 500 Federal from East Greenbush up to Troy. 2 is we just had a seed investment from Silicon Valley as well as New York City. So we have a little bit of fuel to put on the fire. And we just doubled our staff. So we're at 20. We're looking to go to 50 next year. So we're on a very exciting growth curve. Now, this guy up here is me a few years ago. So my life, and I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, and I thank Bob and the team for helping that dream come true. But I work for IBM, one of the biggest companies in the world. I also work for Lenovo, so I work for very big companies trying to run a channel. I would send out emails, I had webinars and podcasts and vodcasts, and I had 35 different ways that I tried to keep them motivated, up to speed, educated, and selling our product. And it was all failing. Every single metric. 95% of people didn't go to my portal that I spent millions of dollars building. 85% of people didn't open my emails. 98% of people didn't go to my webinars. So all the different tactics that we used weren't working. So the one thing that started to work right as I was leaving, and is now on an accelerated growth curve, is mobile. Every single channel partner of all type that we run into now has a mobile phone. What's more, the average person checks their phone 110 times a day. Unless you have teenagers and then they check them 900 times a day. That's actually a true stat. 900 times is a power user. And then the third thing that's made our business really run well and grow is that 2/3 of those people walking around with smartphones from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. You know, it used to be your spouse, it was the first thing you saw in the morning, and the last thing you saw. It's now your phone. So these people, 2/3 of them say that it is the device, it is the platform, it is the pane of glass that they want to do business with. So if they're reselling your product or they're representing you in the market, they want the updates, they want the up-to-date information in real time, and they want it in the palm of their hand. Big change happening in the industry, and it's solving a big problem. So that is kind of the first step of what we're doing. We've worked with almost 100 customers now to get mobile apps. I'll show you a couple of examples in a minute. But what we're really doing and what our vision is going forward, if anybody's keeping track, this is step 3 of your value proposition. Where we're taking this business is we're collecting a lot of big data in a little way about channel partners. What they read, what they see, who they follow, where they go, what they do. You start to coordinate and correlate that back to sales, and you can start figuring out that, hey, our top salespeople do this, this, and this. What if I could set up a mission for all of our salespeople to do those 3 things? These are the types of things where you get predictive, prescriptive analytics and make your channel better. We call this channel acceleration. And in the end, our goal is what we call a next best action. Everyone is busy. You're trying to do all things to keep your channel moving forward. Wouldn't it be great if the platform comes back and says, hey, here's what to do next. We can move sales by 1% this week if you do these 3 things. By the way, we've already set it up for you. Now, some of the customers we work with, and most of these came right out of the gate in our first year. There was a lot of demand for this type of solution. But working with very large companies around the world, like an HP, Cisco, Verizon, who have massive channels. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people speaking 200 different languages, and working under a lot of different types of tiers and everything else, right down to small type of companies that are completely escaping the web and the portals in the old traditional ways and going right to mobile first. Now, in terms of the impact on customers, and this is step 4 of the value proposition, many of our customers have come back and said, not only is this disruptive, it's game-changing, it's the new normal for my channel. Where we used to invest in 35 different things, Now we're putting energy in catching them where they are and when they are, catching them in real time. There's another stat that might be interesting. In the consumer world, on your phone, 25% of people say yes to push notifications because you don't want to blow up the front of your phone and have it buzz all day. But in the B2B world, 75% of people, 75% of people say yes in the B2B world. And then another stat on top of that is when you send out a push notification to this 75% of your audience, 90% of them see it within 3 minutes. So we're talking to people that no one's listening to them, and all of a sudden now 90% of 75% hear them within 3 minutes. It's a very powerful tool, it's a powerful mechanism, and it's a platform that we continue to build upon. Now, why we're here and what our ask is, I think we're looking for A players, we're looking for strong developers, and you can see the software stack that we build on top of a Ruby shop with a bunch of mobile tools on top. We're also looking for A players on the sales side, as well as lead generation type of folks. And then the third thing that I didn't put up here, probably the most important, if any of you work in a company that has channels or know a company that has channels or partners or resellers of any type, we'd love to talk to you, love to work with you. We're working in almost every industry and trying to make that work across all the different industries. Thank you. So I think we have a few minutes for questions if anyone in the audience has questions. Come on, top deck. I called you out earlier. Oh, front row.
What mobile platforms do you guys support?
Question was, what mobile platforms do we support? iPhone, Android. We run a mobile website as well, which runs on Windows phones and Blackberries, and it also runs on a computer. So we're kind of device agnostic, whether somebody has an iPad or whether they have an Android type of device. If you want to know our statistics so far, professionals working in channels, 73% of North American channels run iPhones, which is different than the market share and different than the statistics around the world that you would normally see. So we think 3/4 of our audience is iOS-based. David?
How big is your average customer?
Average customer size was the question. And this is one of the beautiful things as we've worked over the last year and a half on this product. Our average customer started probably at the beginning around $10,000. Every couple of months it grows by $1,000. I think our average customer today is around $17,000. And with the new channel acceleration modules, we're starting to see customers in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. Recurring.
Yeah, that's my question. Where do you go from here? What are the next steps and how do you expand?
Next steps for us is we're placing a couple of bets. One is that we think that there's other industries that we could go after. We've started a retail division with all of the collateral and everything else. We're looking at industrial, automotive, we're looking at financial, insurance. There's a bunch of industries that have the similar problems than a traditional channel. That's one area. Two is that we're building a channel program of our own. There's a lot of influencers, there's people that are referral agents and other type of people out there that we're trying to bring in to help us grow the company. That's the second thing. And the third thing is really on the development side, is building out this channel acceleration. I talked about the set of missions, predictive and prescriptive analytics. The quality of the software and the robustness of the solution is where we're really investing heavily in the next year. Maybe time for one more question at the back.
Hi there. The United States is one of the few global markets that doesn't yet have penetration in mobile advertising. Companies like Buzz City have presence in Asia, South America, and all over Europe. Are you going to work into that type of market?
Today we don't work directly. The question I think that most people heard, but it was on mobile advertising and U.S. lack of or laggard scale as compared to around the world. We're not exactly a mobile advertising company. We do have some interesting customers though that are distributors that they will manage a number of brands. They might have a couple of dozen brands, and what they'll do inside their app is they represent other manufacturers and allow them to get access into their audience. Those are things like mobile advertising, banner ads, sponsored posts, and those types of things. So we are not a direct mobile advertiser, but our platform has an advertising component that others can use to attract more customers. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Our next company is Mad Glory. It's going to be Clark Foley and Brian Corrigan. This is a new service, Calamari. It's a multi-site, multi-outlet, cloud-hosted content platform. Try and say that 3 times fast. For publishers, which allows them to store and distribute content for a variety of campaigns. With that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for having us. Just want to say thank you to Jason and Kelly very much for having us. Honored to be in the first part of season 2 for Startup Tech Valley. It's really cool to be here. I actually worked at this venue for 3 years when there used to be rock shows. This is not quite as rockin' and rollin', but it's still really fun. So I'm up here with my partner, Brian Corrigan at Mad Glory, and we also have a heckling crew up here, Peanut Gallery. Those are engineers at Mad Glory, so we're glad to be in front of you. Some quick company history about us. Many of you know us, and we've had the pleasure of attending entrepreneurial meetings with every one of you here, and also having a few beers together, so that's been cool. But we started less than 2 years ago with one person and a goal to kind of change the way things and entrepreneurial things are done around here. So, fast forward 2 years later, we have 15 people now working in Saratoga. People commuting from Del Mar, from Troy, from Schenectady, and we've chosen to make downtown Saratoga our home for our company, which has been really beneficial. Yes, thank you to the Saratoga Chamber of Commerce and all the excellent businesses up there doing great things. So we have been working primarily in the entertainment industry, not just because I used to play in a band and I used to want to be a rock star. That didn't happen per se, but I get to enjoy the media industry and the entertainment industry right now. We work with a couple big publishers and some really fun IP. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of Lord of the Rings and League of Legends. Basically, we love the properties that we work on, and that's what has enabled us to kind of think of some new solutions to solve the problems that these big companies face. And with that said, Mad Glory is proud to present for the first time in public ever the Calamari system. Calamari, as was mentioned before, is basically a new spin on a CMS. We all know and often groan and have some interesting words to say about CMSs when we have to deal with them, but the fact is that they fuel websites today, and everyone knows that whether you're visiting them on a mobile device, from your desktop, wherever you're using a website, someone is curating that content, and it often can be a pain. So this is what the Calamari property does. And we would like to propose why you should use this system. We've worked with large companies, as I mentioned, who have multiple properties. They're maintaining content that gets pushed out to several websites at a time, not to mention social feeds. So you basically have a content writer who will create a piece of content, write it, and prepare it to go to one single outlet. What happens when you need to push that to a second site or to a social media network or repurpose it for another use at a later date? Basically, you start to get into the process of redoing work over and over. What Calamari does is manage multiple sites and multiple properties from one admin panel. Instead of pushing content once, you can push a whole campaign. You basically can exponentially have better effects with the content that you push by simultaneously getting it out to different properties. So with that, we'd like to show some proof in action. Brian, I'll give it to you.
I get to talk about the fun stuff.
And you get to click this when you're ready.
I will screw this up. Okay, so where is it being used? So here's one. This is a cool website called Shadow Mordor. It's a Warner Brothers property. Warner Brothers is one of our biggest customers and has been for many years for this company and before that. Somebody in the room, anybody build websites? Anybody? A couple of techies, right? So Anthony, how much do you think our website costs?
$499.
So that's about a $400,000 website. It's got 6 pages, okay? Right? Everyone in the room is going, oh my God, where's all that money go? It gets pissed out the window on process. on translation, on production, on all the silly things that you don't think, would cause money to get pissed out the window. It gets pissed out the window on things like that. So we looked at that and said, well, that means about $399,000 of that is ours to claim. Right? That's a $1,000 website. And this is what we've been doing for the last 15 years at this company or other companies before it. Here's another neat one. So what's cool about Calamari is people think websites, not that exciting. This is working, yeah. What we've done here is we've kind of separated the websites in half, cut it in half, and we've automated the backend. So the same system that drives websites for Warner Brothers drives this neat property for a startup that we're working on. This thing really does not like me. For a startup we're working on called Overdog. So this is a startup that was founded by a couple former Chicago Bears who are a lot smaller in person than you might think. You expect them to be about 400 pounds and show up and not know anything, a couple of meatheads or something. These guys are brilliant, very smart guys. We're in our office. This is the startup we're building. And it's the same type of problem. Somehow, you have to program content to every one of these squares. Almost every time you go build an app or you build something, think of any startup out there, Facebook, anybody. You have to build the same thing over and over and over again. Our platform abstracts it all away. It's very cool. So, I'm supposed to talk a little bit about the opportunity. Here we go. So, traditional off-the-shelf systems are obsolete, right? Nobody wants to use these things. Our biggest customer is Riot Games. Riot Games spends $3 million a year on their content platform. That's a lot of money. They use Drupal. Anyone use Drupal? Yeah, of course you have. It's awful. And not only that, these things are cheap to get into and expensive. Louder? They're cheap to get into and they're expensive to sleep with. They're expensive to stay with. which is exactly what I meant to say. They cost more over time, right? They're cheap to get into. They sound like they're free, but no, they're not free. You pay for them over time. So the opportunity here is quite big. You take a big publisher, they're spending literally millions of dollars a year supporting free software, which doesn't really make any sense. So again, our plan, we're going to charge them a lot of money to pay for software that's cheap to support. Flip the model around. Again, we work in entertainment. We've been doing it for almost 20 years. It's a $2 trillion industry this year. It's going to be up to 2.3 in the next couple years. Every one of these companies that publishes things that movies, music, games, spends a ton of money on this stuff. It's completely disorganized and our system automates it. This is a list of people in our company. There's a lot of brain power here. I will venture to say there's more brain power on this company than anyone I've ever worked with. That's the summary of that whole slide.
Yeah.
Clark.
All right, cool. We just want to take this quick opportunity to mention something really fun that we're trying to put on to give back to the community that's been supportive to us in Saratoga and the Capital Region. We are putting on, as Matt Glory, a conference called the Level Up Conference. Friends of ours like Jason and a lot of people here have helped us get this going. Steve Wilcox at Fingerpaint, the Apprenda guys, Commerce Hub, a lot of the companies around here, Pinnacle Recruiting, Automate, they've just been really supportive. And the Chamber in Saratoga, we can't thank them enough. Basically, as a startup, kind of ourselves, and working on multiple startups, we've gone through the basic 4 pillars of the process. It's ideation and creation, then design, then development and building, and then launching and promoting your product. And that's what we plan to have the program be at this conference. It's October 8th and 9th. You can register for it at levelupcon.co. And if you go to the next slide, Brian, my friend, you can see just a few of the names of people who will be speaking. We have some really cool speakers from Heroku, WordPress, Automatic. Actually, the ticketing system that we're using for this conference is going to be launched at this event. So if you've ever had sleepless nights, we've had a few of them already. Planning this conference has been really fun. So thank you guys again for listening to us. We appreciate it, and good luck to the rest of the people presenting. We're glad to be here. Thank you. 2 questions, Jason says.
Only 2.
Yes, we were chatting before. How's it going?
Wait, we charge per question. We charge per question.
Okay, that's our pricing model. You were asking about pricing model.
Front-end technology, the front-end technology.
What is the front-end technology that runs on the CMS? Brian, I'll let you tackle that one.
I don't know why he gives me the tech questions. So Calamari it's an API, so we separate it. So you can make the front end technically wherever you want. For the app itself, we use Ruby and Node.js. That's our sort of lead tech for the two things we use. Yep.
Thanks. One more?
Anybody else?
Right here, right here.
Oh, yes, sir.
Hey,
How do you plan to be a better manager? Like, how you gonna make people think of any other team developers and
yeah, that's a great idea. Great question. So the question was, what's our competitive advantage, basically? And
how do you keep on?
and how do we stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, this is one of those things where in our industry at least, it's really relationship driven, and all the ones I've been in, I found they're exactly the same way. So, you know, when we would need to make a sale, we call up Activision and say, you know, we'd like to have you write us a check for $1 million this year. Here's what we want you to sell. Here's what we're going to give you, and they say okay. So as long as we can make that equation make sense, that's really our competitive advantage. Second of all, you know, anybody can go out and build technology. Technology in and of itself today is never going to be a competitive advantage because it's so cheap to do. The competitive advantage is experience and knowing what to do and how to direct a product. And so it's one of those things. It's just 20 years of doing it.
So you plan on having a large customer lock-in for a long time?
We already do. We've already sold it twice. So, yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, the next company, we have Brent Severino of Microorganic Technologies. Brent has developed over the last 3-4 years a bioelectrochemical system that converts waste into energy.
Thank you. I'm going to apologize to whoever's on the other end of this mic. I'm kind of losing my voice. We'll see how this goes. As Matt said, my name is Brent Severino. I'm the founder of Microorganic. I see a lot of familiar faces, which we'll talk about that at the tail end of this presentation. But I also see a lot of people who I've never really had the opportunity to tell the story in full, so I'm looking forward to that now. We're developing a bioelectrochemical system, which means fundamentally I have the dubious honor of inextricably linking your food with the sewage you create up here on the stage tonight. If you stick with me though, I will tell you how we are doing that to change the link between food and how the world gets its power. So let's walk through that. Primarily we're using this technology with food processors, but again we'll describe how it's platform technology moving forward to changing how the world gets its power. So this is a typical, fairly simple meal. You see a lot of things there. You see some eggs, bacon, orange juice, all came from different parts of the world, and it had a lot of steps in between the field and the plate that you see there. There's a lot of people that had to come together to make something like this happen. And every step between the farm and your plate generates organic waste that has to be dealt with. Typically, it winds up here at your local municipal wastewater treatment plant. What you're seeing here is a process called aeration. Basically, those giant blowers run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the sole purpose of putting as much air as they can into the water. Now, water doesn't hold a lot of air. If you spend any time at the bottom of the pool trying to breathe, you'll pick up on that fairly quickly. So, not surprisingly, this is not a terribly energy efficient process. Again, these blowers are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never stop. And you're talking about facilities that are about 10 times the size of this room. Most of those tanks are. So, that's an error. The big blue section there is the power that goes to aeration. It's the biggest energy consuming process in the plant, and the cost of running those blowers is second only to the cost of staffing in most cases. So not surprisingly, wastewater treatment is responsible for about 7% of the nation's total energy expenditure. So if you're with me here, we just talked about how the food that we're eating tonight is actually responsible for the cooling towers that you see in the background, or at least 10% of them, give or take. And that brings up the question of why, whether or not there's a better way, and that's where our technology comes in. Fundamentally, we do one thing and one thing only, and we do it very well, and that's to make it easier to breathe. What you see in this eye chart here is a very complex, but not complete, biochemical pathway map of the cell. There's a lot of things going on there, but every one of those processes
is designed to do one thing, and that's to break down energy-containing materials, shuffle around electrons, and get them to oxygen. That's why you and I breathe. Fundamentally, your respiration is an electrical process. You're ripping electrons off of the food that you eat, and you're jamming them into oxygen. And that's, again, the purpose that those blowers are serving, is to provide the oxygen. So fundamentally, though, this is chemistry. And we're going to borrow principles from another electrochemical process called a fuel cell. In a traditional fuel cell, you have hydrogen gas that donates electrons to an electrode. The electrons move over to the other chamber, and they all combine with oxygen to form water. Now that electron moving up and through the wire is actually power. You can put a device in between there. So we're going to take those principles and we're going to adapt them to incorporate that giant molecular toolbox that you saw in that previous eye chart. We're going to take billions of years worth of evolution that gives us the ability to break down anything that'll decompose, and we're going to use it to generate electricity. We place a layer of microorganisms here on this electrode, and they break down organic material, literally forcing electrons through the wire, just as before, over into the counter electrode. Just as before, the hydrogen ions migrate over, and just as before, they combine with oxygen. And that is how you get a microbial fuel cell developed about 2005 to 2007. As you can see, though, we're still bubbling in oxygen, which means that it's just as inefficient as the process before. We can still borrow from traditional fuel cells, however, and create an air-breathing electrode that is water impermeable, is conductive, and catalyzes the electron transfer to that oxygen. What happens when we do that is now those microorganisms are doing the same thing that they would breathing in that oxygen, except they're sending that electron through a wire. I realize this is all very dry, but the impact is very profound. We get the same results doing treatment, but we get to turn off those massive blowers that we saw before. We take motors that would have literally filled this room and completely turn them off. And again, we take that molecular toolbox that you saw that's capable of decomposing, or taking literally anything that'll decompose, and using it to generate direct electricity. We literally have, again, a layer of microorganisms that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, consume organic material and push electricity into the wire for us. The problem is, right now, it's not very much electricity, so we're targeting the treatment aspects. As it stands, most food processing institutes put a very strong waste downstream. As a result, the municipality backcharges them because otherwise your tax dollars are effectively paying for these facilities to operate. So what we're doing is to go on site, we lower the strength of the waste that they're producing, thereby lowering the bill that they're subjected to, and thereby lowering the treatment burden on the local facility. This is monumentally important in terms of economic development for most regions too. Is anybody here from Regeneron tonight? No? Yeah, a couple of years ago, you got into some trouble with East Greenbush, yeah? So, this is one of those things that, again, is a very multifaceted problem, and one that we're looking to alleviate by offering a low-cost solution to place on site. And again, I would like to iterate, though, that this is a platform technology. We're targeting treatment now because of the size of the problem. Food processing facilities can pay up to $1 million a year in surcharge fees. That's what we're looking to alleviate. Simultaneously, we're generating an energy generation platform by targeting manufacturing at the early stage. This is a technology that's been around. What we're doing very differently is working with the unique manufacturing resources here in upstate New York. We have a manufacturing partner in Rochester that allows us to make that electrode system that we talked about in quantities as short as 10 feet to do our testing on a platform that can generate rolled goods to the tune of about 1 mile an hour. And this gets me to arguably what is, Jason asked for an ask. We are looking for channel partners, folks that do work in the wastewater treatment industry. We'd like to be an equipment manufacturer. We are growing to be able to do direct sales, but we're interested in other people in this space. Also, anybody with connections to assembly houses would like to talk. We do our manufacturing here in upstate New York. We'd like to do our assembly here as well. And most importantly, we're looking for demonstration partners. We travel as far as Buffalo and Rochester. We'd like some partners here in New York State. We don't have any in Albany right now, which does make the development very difficult and hard on the tires. But the most important point that I would like to make tonight is the number of people that have gone into making this happen. Matt had to guess a little bit when he asked about how long we've been up to this, and that's because we started this when I was an undergrad up the hill at RPI, working with the Severino Center at that point. We wound up rolling down the hill to the Tech Valley Center of Gravity that's right behind us. We're now located in the incubator out at Skodak that Bob Rand presented last year. So there's most of my investors are around here, as well as thank you. Do I get one? Anything?
How scalable is this? How can you scale this?
Absolutely. Again, that's why we targeted manufacturing early. Compared to most laboratory technologies we're working on scaling currently, it's an intimate part about whether or not you can make this product. So yes, very scalable. We're looking at a global market.
What sort of microorganisms?
It's a whole mixed culture. I can get more in depth with that. My goal was to form a basis of conversation for after this. So.
Okay, I feel like I should speak softly. The next group is Brian Bradley and Robert Barron from Embedded. They are two RPI alum now that worked with us in the summer foundry. And I'm going to give them a plug now because they did a lot of customer development over the summer with us and started their Kickstarter campaign 15 days ago. 18?
Less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks. So when you're up here, if you do like them, they're on Kickstarter and you can get involved. But their product is an electronics development platform that allows software to interact with the physical world. It emphasizes flexibility. It's what all of us that are engineers, we practice on when we were in school. They're making the next generation.
Okay, I'm loud. Thanks for that introduction and that shameless plug there, but let's get started anyway. Sorry that I'm stiff. I don't usually wear suits. I got made fun of for not wearing my hoodie today. So, anyway, so we are Robert Barron and Brian Bradley, co-founders of Embedded Electronics. And we would like to let you guys know today that the apps that you guys have on your phones and on your extensions to web browsers, they're limited. Now you might be thinking that I'm crazy because you can get apps that can do pretty much anything these days. You can get one that'll endlessly occupy you for hours. You can get one that'll solve some kind of problem in your life and help you organize anything. You can get anything in between, but they're still limited in the way that they interact with you, such that they are forced into this medium of the screen, and there's no way to interact with the real world in any meaningful way. So we'd like to set forth a way to change that. And this isn't a new technology, but we're doing it in kind of a new way. So we're bringing the ability for your software to communicate with the real world in a tangible way through something called physical computing. We want our applications and the people who develop them and the people who use them to bring their devices and their projects to life. Oh, I'm turning it off, man. Okay, that was supposed to be on behind me the whole time. So, I don't know how to use this. All right, clearly. So what does that mean, physical computing? Well, say for instance, you wanted to take a coffee pot, turn it into a smart one by having it tweet you when your coffee was finished brewing. Perhaps you want to get your physical mail to give you an email notification when it gets dropped in your mailbox. This is physical computing, and it's not new, but we're doing it in a new way that's more accessible to anyone. So what about something more complex, something we've done? How about a robot xylophone? something you can play remotely through a computer, through your keyboard, or you can access it remotely through a web server, something like that. How about something like a pencil tester? We made it of a bathroom scale for many orders of magnitude cheaper than is available commercially. What about a face tracking web camera with my picture up there, my nice Rensselaer shirt, that identifies my face by name, tracks its movement, and this is all easily done using the software. How about a mobile electronics instrumentation platform, something that you can put in your backpack, take a class, and bring home later, a 2-channel oscilloscope, and waveform generator, all done on the same platform. How could we do something like this? What if I told you it was easy? Let's first talk about the Raspberry Pi. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a tiny credit card-sized computer, costs $35, and there's 3 million that exists today in circulation. Runs a full Linux operating system, and it's a full-featured computer. But it's limited still. It still can't interact with the real world in the way that we desire. It's not the ecosystem we imagine. It's trapped behind iron bars, if you will. So, we needed a way to bring this thing to life and connect it to the real world. We needed to give it a full-featured microcontroller, the ability to handle real-time tasks and schedule them with precision, which is not possible on an operating system that is inherently not real-time like Linux. We needed to be powerful enough and flexible enough to be dropped directly into a Linux environment, unlike the Raspberry Pi. So we needed a new kind of development platform, one that brings the power of the PSOC to the Raspberry Pi, and it's the last development board you'll ever need.
All right, so one thing we want to emphasize with this board is that it's pure flexibility. Your projects may change, your needs may change, but with this, your tools don't need to change. We have a lot of ways to do the same things. We have C, Verilog, digital logic design, Python, and Scratch. And I'm going to get into why those are all important. The PSOC, it's a device that's used in a lot of commercial applications right now. I guarantee there are devices in that room that use it. But we want to bring it to education, we want to bring it to the open source market. So what we're thinking is for education, here's something a student might need to do. They might spend 20 minutes designing something and then an entire day trying to wire this thing up. Why not take away the wires? They can design it the same way they would have on a breadboard, and now they can just wire it up internally on the PSOC. It's running hardware. But now they can focus on the content and the problem and not worry about how they're executing the solution. Same with the lab in a box. We have a mobile studio that you can bring home with you. The RPI Mobile Studio set out to do this, but we're doing it in a much more flexible way. We want to bring this to everybody so that you can use it both in lower education and higher. And most importantly, we now have Scratch. Scratch is a visual programming language that's designed by MIT. The idea is that kids can use it. It's entirely visual. You just snap blocks together. And so it's basically fun to do programming. So the entry barrier is very low. You don't need to know how to do programming. You can be any age and still use this board. So, what about our market? What we want to stress is that even though we're open source, we think we're still poised for success. The open hardware market is still an over $1 billion industry. That's not counting all the other markets that we kind of intersect with. So, what are we doing now? Like Matt said, our Kickstarter is live right now, and we hope some people will take a look at the page, because what we're really looking for is exposure. We're also going to the Maker Faire in New York in a little while, a few weeks from now, to present, and we're going to have a booth there, and hopefully we'll get more people that way. And once again, we also have, we're looking to get it into the hands of educators so they can get it in the classroom. That's probably our top priority. So.
And to extend on that, to that end, we currently are piloting the board right now in RPI in 2 different capstone classes. So the board is being used to create, first, a very flexible and powerful data acquisition device that will be used to interface with LabVIEW, further extending its functionality. It's being used as the core to an incredibly sophisticated robotics platform as well. This thing has huge range of applicability. And then beyond that, we're hoping that by the spring of 2015, we'll be able to pilot ourselves in schools outside of RPI, and by the fall, we'll be able to establish ourselves within some kind of curriculum so that we can become repeatable officially. So what we need going forward is, most notably, exposure. We need that most immediately too. Currently, we are running this Kickstarter, as been mentioned a few times, and we've only received 770 views in total. So this is just people haven't found our project because it gets buried in the incredible realm of Kickstarter and you can't find it. But what's amazing is that our success rate is huge with those numbers. 132 of those 700 people have committed to purchasing the board. So we're confident if we can get the project started, we can get the conversation started, we can get people talking about it, then our content will do the rest, and we'll go from there. Questions?
Have you guys had any support from the makers of, or distributors of the Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, huge amount of support. So the board is currently being used. We shipped 2 of them out to the UK, where they're being piloted by some of their engineers there. And more importantly, we have 17 of them right now in the hands of a bunch of really good electronics hobbyists who make really cool Internet of Things projects. It's being used as a core of a design challenge hosted by Element 14. So we're getting a ton of really, really useful beta testers out of it right now. $44. It's currently for a limited time being sold for $39.
Have you talked to the educational departments at various other engineering departments at other colleges?
Yes, we have. We had extensive conversations with a lot of them. UAlbany, OSU, Cornell. Currently, OSU gives a ton of different great feedback, where one of the professors really wants to use their board for application and mixed signal processing. Cornell, we're currently in conversation where they want to create a class around it for teaching kids ARM assembler and ARM programming.
What do you guys need to grow, and how many of these do you think you can sell per year?
Well, that's going to depend on how well we can penetrate the education market. The idea is ultimately once it becomes repeatable, we'll be able to easily sell to every new student that comes into the classroom. So you buy one in your freshman year, and now you don't have to buy another kit at all for the next 4 years, because this thing, you can just download the new program instead of buying a new kit. So it's really as many schools as we can get interested, but it's hard to project until we've actually established ourselves in that market. Currently, we're looking for production under 500 boards.
Sure. So I think an important thing to note about this is it's kind of a platform that can launch on some other things. We kind of want to see other kids come out of this, and especially for education, we know this could be kitted in a way that would cost more money, but allow for a wider breadth of applications. And that's the same with just the hobbyist space. There's a lot of different ways we can go based on what people are getting from us, really. That's why we have this wider range of projects that will show people what we can do. Yeah.
Last question. If I'm on Kickstarter and I don't want a board, can I get a t-shirt instead? And what level do I have to go up?
The thing we decided to do for the t-shirt instead, because we thought t-shirts were lame. Oh, yeah. We thought t-shirts were kind of lame and everyone did them. So instead we're giving people blank PCBs that are like way cheaper than t-shirts. So you can get one of those and hang on your wall. And you can turn it into something useful if you want to solder or practice or something.
Sorry, you're lame. You're also on those t-shirts.
Oh, okay. We'll get you some t-shirts. No, it's the $15 level. The $149 level is for the boards that we hand populated, so they're OG boards, we call them.
The next, we have Somak is here from Armory Square Ventures. Many of our entrepreneurs, at least at Rensselaer and a few of the other local colleges, know who Armory Square Ventures is. They're a seed and early stage venture fund based in upstate New York and New York City. And with that, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Somak Chattopadhyay. It's such a pleasure to have a chance to present to all of you today. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So just to recap, so Armory Square Ventures, we're a very new venture fund. We are, I think, the first venture fund to emerge in upstate in over 15 years. We closed on $15 million in April and are on path to grow significantly larger in the next few months. And we're going to be announcing our first 2 investments this month. But we're really, really excited now, focusing on what we love doing, which is really backing world-class entrepreneurs with an emphasis on upstate. So before I go into the slides, I want to just talk a bit about the story behind Armory Square Ventures. It's a very interesting one because with venture funds, generally there's a partner that said, I want to create a venture fund and I'm going to raise money. And in this instance, there was a group of leaders upstate, which included academic leaders, business leaders, foundations, who said, if you look nationally, the Brook Institute has done a research report on this. Nationally, the venture capital dollars per capita, dollars that are being invested in risk capital and startup businesses, is close to $1,000. In upstate New York, does anyone want to hazard a guess as to what the number is in this region? Guess? Not even $30. And actually the number's been going down. Now what's interesting is that at the same time I say that stat to you, there's been an incredible proliferation of seed incubators, accelerators. The universities have been committing a lot of resources to these initiatives. What happens is when that company that manages to show that product market fit and get that first initial commercial customer wants to raise a first institutional round of funding of $1 million or $2 million, they have nowhere to go ultimately besides New York City, Boston, Silicon Valley. And for many industries, that probably makes a lot of sense. If you're a social media company, maybe you need to be in New York or San Francisco. If you're a storage technology company or biotech company, maybe you should be in Silicon Valley. But there are many industries that are native to upstate New York where the talent exists here, the domain expertise exists here. There just haven't really been many institutional sources of capital. Hello? I just got clear. So that's where enter Armory Square Ventures. Armory Square Ventures was formed. I actually moved from New York City a year ago to launch Armory Square Ventures with a few people here upstate. We're excited to be really focusing on what we love doing, which is building world-class companies. When I think about what a venture fund is, if you think about any of the best venture funds in the world, Sequoia, Excel, Battery, what have you, it's a lot more than capital. It's about being a conduit to talent, customers, and other co-investors to really help a company grow at all stages of their development to create world-class businesses. Success begets success, talent begets talent. This is a relationship-based game, as Brian mentioned at Mad Glory, and I'm really excited to be working with the team to help it make it happen here in upstate New York. So just a little bit about our profile. I think I've already covered a bit about this. So we were founded, we're only 5 months old. We have an investment team that I'll talk about shortly that includes people that have experience in venture capital, in startups, and in building startup ecosystems across New York State. We're focusing on software, technology-enabled services, and mobile companies. And so generally, if you have a proof of concept, if you have a prototype, you have a key sales and marketing person, a key product technology person. You may not have any revenue, but you're just starting to develop your first batch of customers. That's where we like to get involved. We write the first check of $500,000 to $1 million, but we participate in rounds much larger and can bring in syndicate partners to help make sure that you have enough runway to grow your business. Besides the money though, I think the key area where we get excited, where we invest in companies, is where we can leverage the talent network, not only in upstate New York, but in other areas like New York City, Silicon Valley, Boston, where there may be affinities to some of the industries we're backing. In terms of our investment approach, we're very much focused on proactively finding companies across upstate. So even though we have an office in Syracuse and a satellite office in New York City, we're spending a lot of time here in the Albany, Saratoga area. Some of you actually were at our event we held in Saratoga Springs a few weeks ago. We're seeing an amazing amount of talent here through the RPI and University of Albany ecosystem, and we'd love to find ways to work with you if you're interested in building a company. In terms of our experience, I'll talk shortly about my background, but I've been a venture capitalist for most of the last 10 years, spent the first half of my career with 2 startups. I was part of New York City when New York City was really not considered a startup hub. In fact, as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, I was begging venture capitalists from the Valley and from Boston to come take meetings with companies that we were looking to invest in. And fast forward a few years, really all the credit goes to the entrepreneurs. One of our companies, our prior fund, is worth over $1 billion right now. Probably one of the most important companies in New York City. I have another company that's a mobile payments company that's probably now catching up with Square. And we're now Silicon Valley funds, Boston funds. Real entrepreneurs are coming from all over the region to create companies in New York City, and I think that type of potential exists in upstate New York. I think it's all about the network, and I'll talk a bit more about how we're leveraging that. So I already mentioned we're the first venture fund in this region, I think, to merge in over 15 years. We focus primarily on B2B businesses, although we look opportunistically at consumer-facing businesses as well. Our team and our advisors have experience investing across multiple cycles. We are a returns-oriented fund, so that's very important to note. We're backing companies which we think we can create great business in. We can technically invest anywhere in North America, but our emphasis is on upstate New York and other areas of New York State. We have world-class advisors who really have experience in all stages of building companies, from the seed stage to exit. We have a team of 2 people on the investment team. Some of you may know Mitchell Patterson. Mitchell actually continues to be involved in terms of supporting companies we back. He's now focusing on building out a new incubator initiative, and we're really excited about what he's going to be working on next. We'll be announcing that shortly. But we also have a team of advisors and venture partners. We'll be announcing 2 venture partners shortly. One who has deep roots upstate and has a fabulous experience both as an operator and venture investor in upstate. And we have another gentleman who's based in New York City who sold one of his companies for under $1 billion, who's a phone call away from every Fortune 50 CEO, which we think is important, especially in B2B software businesses. So why did I leave New York City a year ago, a little over a year ago, to move to the Finger Lakes to create an upstate fund? I think it's all about inefficient markets. Again, this is what drew me to New York City. 10 years ago, when I started as a venture investor, there weren't any venture funds. There were a few, mostly focusing on the late stage, but there weren't incubators, there weren't accelerators. Today, you can go in any area of Union Square or Soho or Brooklyn, and you can throw a dart and you'll find an incubator, an accelerator, or an early stage company pitching an investor. I think that there's a lot of great upside still in New York City, but I think we're now ready in upstate New York for an institutional venture fund. And I think when you look at some of the greatest fund managers that have existed in many industries, this is a quote by Howard Marks, the best upside is in areas where there are inefficient markets, where you have proprietary networks, domain expertise, and that provides an unfair advantage, I think, as an investor. So why New York State is exciting to us? We have 1 minute. Obviously, some phenomenal companies that have built here, not just in New York City, but upstate, like Chobani, Paytech. Next Tuesday, I'll be interviewing the founder of Paytech, who sold his company for $2.3 billion in Rochester just a few years ago. Amazing innovation, great talent pools, and I think that's really the ingredients of success for a venture fund. Some fabulous exits we can talk about later. Some incredible incubators, accelerators, and universities. Here's a bit about our investment criteria. Generally focusing on B2B software, first round of institutional capital. So the ask to our audience, we're a fresh pool of capital. We're very, very eager to invest this capital, but we're focusing on really what's really the finite research, which is our entrepreneurs who are interested in building world-class companies. So we're here first and foremost to meet companies that are seeking capital. We're also interested in recruiting talent, people who are interested in joining the teams of companies we back, whether it's full-time operators, advisors, or potentially board members. And ultimately, whether we invest in you or not, we'd love to be a conduit to you, for you, to investors, customers, partners, and other people who could help grow your business. The more talent and customers and partners and investors we bring to this region, the better this region becomes for us overall. And I think a rising tide moves all boats. So that's a little bit about us. I welcome any questions.
These are all exciting things, so put this on your calendar. It's going to be an exciting event. And with that, kind of a last thank you to our sponsors. This wouldn't be possible without you. We have had a great group of sponsors, including Browns. We put them a limit on the amount of food budget we could have, and it seems like they kept the food coming out. So I hope that I think this is part of their sponsorship, but they've just a great partner in pulling off this event and making it happen. So once again, thank you for coming, and drive safe on the way back.